first day he signed with the team. You know he's not perfect, but on certain days in his life, he has been. The night he poured in 63 points, the time he crushed 3 home runs in the World Series, the day he found Dwight Clark in the end zone. And you wish at some point, at some moment in your life, you could be that perfect too. And that's why you cheer for him. That's why you believe in heroes.
As you're about to see in this video of my career highlights, I had a lot of people to thank for my success. This video will show what a huge influence my father, coaches, teammates, and fans have had on me, and what a great career I've had because of them. You see, I've had a lot of help and support along the way. I'd also like to recognize the people from Haynes who helped make this video possible. See, the people from Haynes have been with me through some of my more memorable moments of my career and through some of the tougher ones. So thank you, Haynes, for your support, and thanks for making such comfortable clothes. I'm very grateful that I've been one of the fortunate to be able to live a dream. I've been lucky to be with a bunch of guys throughout my career that have all not wanted to fail. I try to be the same all the time. It didn't matter whether it was a Monday night or it was a Super Bowl. There's enough pressure there, and you just try to help everybody get through it, and you all get through it. You get used to the people, you get used to the atmosphere, and the only thing that changes is the game. Hopefully my dream will be able to inspire other kids not to give up. No matter what that dream may be, that it's always possible for it to come true.
Perhaps the 1992 San Francisco Media Guide says it best. On page 77 it reads, "Joe Montana's presence on the field raises the level of his teammates' efforts and adds the aura that the team can overcome any deficit." No one can say for sure how Joe Montana came to be one of the greatest players football has ever known, a champion on the field, and an ambassador to the sport as well. Perhaps it has to do with his upbringing in western Pennsylvania, blue-collar terrain, where some of the greatest names in football were born. Begin up north in East Brady, home to Jim Kelly of the Buffalo Bills. To the south, Butler, where former Notre Dame great Terry Hanratty grew up. Beaver Falls claims Joe Namath, who moved on to Alabama and the New York Jets. The Pittsburgh area is home to 2 of the game's greats, Johnny Unitas and Miami Dolphin Dan Marino. South of the city is the Mon Valley, where the town of Monongahela is located. Tugs drift daily along the river that serves as a gateway between many of the steel mills that remain in operation outside of Pittsburgh. Not far from the banks of the Mon River is the house where one of this area's most popular citizens grew up. Like many of the natives here, Joe Montana thrived on the competition that became part of his life in Monongahela.
Well, the one thing I remember about Monongahela was that there were always a lot of kids around to do a lot of things with, and it seemed like we were always running somewhere to play something.
I used to leave him with my mother and father. When I'd go to work, I worked about a block and a half away from where they lived. When we'd come home, my father said, "Boy, am I glad you're home. Now somebody else play ball with this kid," because he says, "I'm wore out." Joe was always very active, always.
13 years old, he could throw the ball 60 yards in the air. I think he has a strong arm. I mean, he split my hands open a couple of times catching him. So I know how he throws. So.
Joe's football talents were recognized early. After playing Pee Wee ball 1 year under the legal age, Joe went on to play at Ringgold High School. He wore number 13 at Ringgold and quickly displayed his talents not only in football, but in other sports as well.
Joe had natural ability. Joe could beat you in ping pong, he could beat you in pool, he could beat you in tennis. He was a great punter, and of course, a great basketball player, a pitcher on a baseball team, shortstop. He had all the ability that it takes to be a winner. And we recognized that right away, that he had natural ability.
Even as a high school quarterback, Joe displayed his leadership by example, a trait for which he is well known today.
When Joe walks into a huddle, it's not because he's forceful, it's not because that he's a tough guy. He just walks in the huddle and you just know, the people around him know that he has a God-given ability to get it done, and no matter what's called, it's going to get done.
Inside the new gym at Ringgold, banners hang in tribute over the basketball court, testimony to his multi-sport talents in high school.
In a critical situation, you wanted him to have the ball, to pass off, okay, because he would either pass off or would go for the, bucket. But Joe was that type of a player. He would just as soon make the play and pass off to you to make the winning basket. He wasn't worried about himself.
Montana paced the Rams to 2 sectional titles at Ringgold, leading people to believe that perhaps he would choose a basketball scholarship from North Carolina State over football.
As a senior in high school, I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. I was kind of divided between basketball and football, and I think my father at the time really thought I was going. I remember a conversation we had in the car one day, and I can't remember where it came from, but it kind of sticks in my mind that he just knew. I said that I had made up my mind that I knew where I was going to go, and he goes, I already know too. And he thought I was taking the easy road out and going to go play basketball. And I had already made up my mind to go to Notre Dame at that point.
From where we come in Pennsylvania, I mean, everybody wanted to go to Notre Dame. I mean, it was that tradition, that part of the country. And anytime we went out on Saturdays, we always turned on the Notre Dame game. And then on Sunday morning, we get up early in the morning so we could watch the replays on television. So he was probably brainwashed at an early age. I don't even remember how I even got started on Notre Dame. I really liked the team. It was almost like a religion. I couldn't do anything until I watched the game Saturday or Sunday if they were on. Later on in the action, Notre Dame has to punt.
Joe knew that Notre Dame tradition went beyond Lindsey Nelson's tape-delayed television broadcasts. Any freshman football player new to South Bend couldn't help getting caught up in the lore and legend of Rockne and Hornung, and in recent years, of Joe Theismann and Pennsylvania product Terry Hanratty, one of Joe's idols. But when Joe Montana began at Notre Dame, he quickly learned that he was just one of many with the same goal.
When I got to Notre Dame, as a freshman, you always have these illusions of grandeur in your mind that things are going to be a lot better than they really are. And when I got there, I was in shock that there were 7 other freshman quarterbacks on the team.
At first, as a freshman, he didn't stand out much more than anybody else, and there were actually 2 other freshman quarterbacks that were higher rated than he was as freshmen.
After a disappointing freshman campaign, Joe began his sophomore season as a backup quarterback. But thanks to 7 comeback victories in 3 years, Montana left a legacy of his own for the record books at Notre Dame.
It was early in the season and hotter than the son of a gun. We were in no position to make a rally.
With just over 6 minutes left in the game, Montana completed 3 of 4 passes for 129 yards and a touchdown.
Well, certainly that was Joe's big entrance into college football and what really got him a lot of notoriety as far as his ability to come in and make a big comeback game for the University of Notre Dame. That was the first indication that he had the ability to be a great quarterback. Everyone knew that he had some inner confidence, but that was the first time he was able to actually demonstrate it on the field.
I recall how impressed the North Carolina people were with Joe's performance. I was too.
Notre Dame Athletic Director Moose Krause called the game the greatest comeback in Notre Dame history. But a week later, Joe found himself coming off the bench again.
Usually in my position, you got to play in one of 2 ways. Either you were way ahead or you were way behind. And this happened to be the case. We were way behind.
The Air Force game was the turning point, I think, as far as the indication as to who should be quarterback.
With a season-high 134 yards passing, Joe engineered 3 scoring drives and established himself as a relief quarterback.
If you're wanting to be in the position, oh yeah, I can't wait to have the ball, but then when you get in the position, you don't do anything with it, it's probably worse.
In his junior year, Joe again started the season on the bench, but was called upon against Purdue. The comeback kid responded with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns and seemed to win more allies in his battle to secure the starting job.
You know, I'm not afraid to be in the position. I don't want to be here, but I'm not afraid of it. I don't jump up and down, yeah, I can't wait, now look what I can do because I'm in this position. And I think that's what guys like to see.
That was ultimately the turning point of our whole season that year, and that allowed us to win the national championship. As you know, Joe came in that year, and we never lost another game during that season and went on to win the national championship.
Joe's junior year turned out to be a banner season for the Fighting Irish. Not only did Montana start the remaining 9 games for Notre Dame, but it was also a season that saw Coach Dan Devine bring out the green uniforms for the rivalry against USC. Under Montana, Notre Dame continued to move up in the national rankings. But it took more heroics against Clemson to keep the Irish bid for a national title alive. Undefeated in 5 previous starts, Joe led the Irish into Death Valley for their game against 15th-ranked Clemson.
He was just an individual that came on the field. You knew what his physical abilities were, and everyone played up and beyond, I think, their physical abilities due to his leadership.
Although he hit on only 9 of 21 passes, Montana rushed for 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to lead the Irish past the Tigers.
There's no doubt in my mind about the ability of the other guys, and I think in return you get the same from them.
Riding a 9-game winning streak, the Irish were ranked 5th when they arrived in Dallas for the 1978 Cotton Bowl against top-ranked Texas. For many of the Notre Dame players, this was their first bowl game, as well as a chance for a first national championship under Coach Dan Devine. Needless to say, this was the bowl game of New Year's Day.
The thing that sticks out in my mind in that game was initially early on in the game, you knew what kind of game it was going to be. Is every night before the games, they would freshly paint our helmets. And our helmets had been painted. And Ricky Churchman hit Jerome Heavens. And all I remember seeing in the sunlight was just this gold dust flying through the air and just sparkling everywhere. And the paint had just shattered. I mean, just come into tiny pieces all over the place. And you're going, it's going to be a long day. But
Texas was the favorite at kickoff. The Longhorns had both the Heisman Trophy winner in Earl Campbell and the Outland Award winner in Brad Shearer on the field. Yet, with one of the nation's top offensive units, Texas had trouble moving the football against the Irish, due in part to the play of linebacker Bob Golick.
Our defense played great. Bob Golick, probably played one of his greatest games ever as a middle linebacker. It was like two bulls meeting in the field at full speed, and Bob ended up winning the battle in the long run.
I think the most special thing about that game was that Texas was the only undefeated team in the country at that time.
With the Irish defense having met the challenge of the Longhorns, the offense now turned to Joe Montana to lead them to a national championship. Montana replied with a balanced attack. Jerome Heavens and Vegas Ferguson each ran for over 100 yards, and Terry Urick scored a pair of touchdowns.
It was a great feeling, I think, because it was one of those years that we had a great defense and we had a good offense. The majority of guys who go through college and even on great football schools don't have an opportunity to win a championship. And so it's something that you can always look back on and be proud of as a member of that team.
With his senior year still remaining, Joe saved some of his best for last. With the team off to a slow 2-2 start, Montana turned a 17-7 deficit against Pittsburgh into comeback victory number 5, passing for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns, most of it taking place in the game's final 13 minutes. The Los Angeles Coliseum was the site of Joe's last regular season game as a member of the Fighting Irish, as Notre Dame and USC renewed their famous rivalry. With just under 13 minutes remaining, the Irish began the rally from a 24-6 deficit with a passing attack led by Joe Montana. Again and again in the fourth quarter, Joe went to his favorite receiver, Chris Haynes, as he piled up career highs in passing yardage, passes attempted, and completed. Montana rang up 358 yards and 2 touchdowns and had the Irish up 25-24 before USC ultimately prevailed with a last-minute field goal.
I think the wind chill was down to like 30 below, it was just something just really atrocious to play football in. And the field had been covered with like 2 inches of ice. We were warming up and this golf cart's going back and forth all around the field. And we're going, what the heck's this guy doing? He's throwing rock salt on the pieces of ice that were left. I mean, I was one scab on both my arms, probably from my elbow halfway up my wrist, on both elbows, and on my knees. They had to cut my pants and my jersey off. You know, everybody wanted to win it, but everybody was looking at the clock, stay in bounds, you know? Oh, don't go out of bounds. What is that guy doing?
For most of the first half against Houston, it looked as though Joe Montana's final game as a member of the Fighting Irish might just slip away without the familiar Montana magic. Notre Dame squandered a 12-point lead, and the Irish simply couldn't hold on to the ball for most of the game. Trailing 34-12 midway through the final quarter, the Irish began their comeback. Playing with hypothermia, Joe spent the second half shuttling between the field and the locker room, where the medical staff fed him chicken bouillon between possessions. Thus, this game became known to many as the Chicken Soup Bowl. And now, with the wind at their backs, the Irish put their first points on the board since the first quarter. Montana and Haynes teamed for a final drive that took Notre Dame to the Houston 8-yard line and set up one of the most unique endings to a college career.
It's kind of a unique kind of thing that happened, too, is we ended up throwing this pass, and I missed it the first time, so I wanted to run it again, and I ended up signaling back, and he said, okay, run it. And so we ran again, and we throw the ball down low and away in hopes that we might have another play. But Chris Haynes makes a great catch in the corner of the end zone for the touchdown.
Although the national championship didn't hang in the balance as it had at the previous year's Cotton Bowl, this New Year's Day victory, or comeback number 7 as many Notre Dame alumni refer to it, almost seemed to count for more. What it did was to close out the college career of Joe Montana, one that saw him finish as Notre Dame's 3rd leading passer behind Joe Theismann and childhood idol Terry Hanratty. And although he finished among impressive company, it hit home that his football career was once again in someone else's hands.
That's when I sat there and thought about it, that it was over, and then you start wondering about your career. I had graduated in December, so I was finished completely. And you start wondering what you're going to do, where you're going to go, and looking forward to the Hula Bowl, and then on to Japan, and start worrying about your career at that point. The funny thing about the NFL, a lot of times what they'll do is that they take and they'll draft a guy on purely size, height, weight, arm strength, and that. So in that scheme of things, I knew I wasn't going to be in the top, 5 or whatever went in the first round, second round. I knew that I wasn't fitting into that plans. I was just hoping that I had an opportunity to make it to the NFL.
Joe was the last man I was to see. And the minute I saw him drop back from center with those quick feet, much like Joe Namath had, and then throw the ball with great accuracy, I knew then that, Joe would be our man.
When I got picked, I was, delighted about having the opportunity not only to play in the NFL, but the chance to play in a new system where a guy who was known for his coaching of quarterbacks and also coming to the team where there wasn't a very established quarterback at that position, gave me some light at the end of the tunnel where I had some opportunity to be able to play. Maybe not immediately, which thank God I didn't have to, but eventually get an opportunity.
It didn't take long for Joe Montana to fit in with a 49er plan for the future. In 1980, he started 7 games and led the NFL in completion percentage. The following season, Montana became the 49ers' full-time starting quarterback in a year that saw the team reverse its record from 6-10 to 13-3 and reach the NFC Championship game for the first time in 10 years. Winning the title, however, would take another comeback.
You know how mothers can be butterflies and everything else, and I'm thinking, oh no, he didn't get this far just to fall on his nose now. Something's got to happen good.
Well, the funny thing is for Dwight and I, is there were times in training camp that year where we thought Bill was absolutely crazy. We hardly ever threw the ball to Dwight in the back. So he had us out there after practice one day, running this thing time after time after time, and every time I didn't throw it high enough, didn't throw it high enough, didn't throw it high enough. You know, up too high, you know, you're going, geez.
They set up a slot back, Solomon in the hole there. Running backs are split behind Montana, 3rd and 3. He has the ball, Montana rolling out the right, looking toward the end zone, throwing under pressure, throws his pass, caught by Clark! Clark got a touchdown! It's a touchdown for the 49ers!
I didn't realize until I got in the locker room and saw the replay that how high the ball actually was. So to me, it was no big deal. And they get in and say, well, Dwight made a great catch. And I figured, well, you know, so it was up high, you know, no big deal. And then I got in and I saw how high it actually was. And I was, you know, I was in shock that he did make a great catch.
With Dwight Clark's catch, the 49ers reached their first Super Bowl in team history. But hours before the game, the 49ers couldn't even field a team.
We almost didn't make the kickoff because I think it was the vice president was coming in and they stopped all the traffic. And we're sitting on the bus.
The thing that made it a little nerve-wracking was the fact that he didn't show up early enough. So a lot of us were scared prior to the game.
Well, you hope in the first few snaps of the Super Bowl you don't trip on an lineman or a back and fall down, or you just want to get the ball to the right person and get that initial adrenaline rush over with so that you can kind of settle down and get back into the concentration of the game and what you're really there for.
It didn't take long for the Niners to lose their inaugural Super Bowl jitters. Montana drove the team 68 yards and took the ball in himself for the 49ers' first Super Bowl touchdown. In the second quarter, Montana drove the team 92 yards, then a Super Bowl record for San Francisco's second touchdown. This one, an 11-yard pass to Earl Cooper for a 14-0 lead. Then, the defense took over.
The defense played great. I mean, they made some great plays down the stretch in the goal line stand. I mean, just was awesome. The highlight of the game, not only for the defense, but for us.
In 1984, the San Francisco 49ers experienced the most successful regular season in NFL history, winning 15 games. In addition, Joe Montana enjoyed the best season yet in his career, tying for the conference lead in touchdowns and earning his first Pro Bowl starting assignment. The offense, under the design of Bill Walsh and operation of Joe Montana, accounted for a team record 475 points. Montana had become one of the most feared weapons in the NFL, capable of striking with a variety of players.
I believe the '84 season was probably one of the best that I've seen in a long time, other than one of the teams that, like Miami, being undefeated. I think we played offensively and defensively very well.
Super Bowl 19 was a battle between two Pennsylvania products, Miami's Dan Marino and Joe Montana.
They were talking about Miami had the offense, and you know, so we had to prove something, that we have talented offense also. And Joe was red hot in that game, and he was hitting everybody with passes. I caught quite a few that day, and man, you know, it's something I always will cherish for the rest of my life, the first Super Bowl that I played in.
In the second quarter, the Niners seemed to score at will, putting together a 28-16 halftime lead. In the first half, Montana ran for 1 touchdown and passed for 2.
Well, I think it was one of those games where offensively we did just about the things that we had to do.
In our minds, we had to just, every time we step out in the field, let's score every time. And our defense is going to hold them one or two times.
It was just a day that you enjoy being in the Super Bowl, where you're not fighting for your life the whole time.
Man, it was fun.
While claiming his second world title, Montana set a record for passing yardage and was named Super Bowl MVP for a second time.
Joe Montana. I said, who's Joe Montana?
Check this out.
Now with 2 Super Bowl rings, the world was finally getting to know who Joe Montana was. Madison Avenue beckoned.
Check this out.
Unstoppable.
Hit him on the chest with the shoe after he said it, Joe.
All right. Unstoppable.
One more time.
Now we have another version. Yeah.
The 1986 season began with a 31-7 victory over Tampa Bay, in which Montana passed for 356 yards and a touchdown. Following the game, Montana discovered that he injured his back and would be out for part of the season.
I felt that I had pulled something, but I didn't know how severe it was. And you know, went on to play the game, and then they had the CAT scan and all that, and showed the disc had just blown and had pushed all my spinal column into 1/4 of the area, and so we had to have surgery just to relieve the pressure off the nerves. It wasn't in my plans, but I really didn't have a choice at that point. You know, I could having severe sciatic nerve pain down in the upper part of my butt and into my legs, down into my feet, my foot, I should say. And you know, I thought at that point my career might be over.
For the first time in Joe's career, he would not play football for an extended period. The shock of the announcement took its toll on everyone.
It hurt sometimes because you saw him suffer, and it was a tough situation. It was a tough situation. It was really tough.
You know, at least when you exercise in football, you got a Sunday to play a game. Well, there were no games in sight. You know, that only milestone was the next, okay, I get to walk without the walker. I get to walk fast today. I get to slowly jog. You know, those are my milestones. And
when I saw Joe try to walk the first time, I never thought that he would play again after that back surgery. But I think Joe's determination was so strong that he was going to get back on that field, that he worked day and night to be there.
Just 8 weeks after what some had considered a career-threatening injury, Montana returned to action.
When he stepped out in the field, I remember, man, I had goosebumps all over my body. You know, I had like tears in my eyes, man, that, you know, dang, he came back, he's back, you know, and it's just a great feeling, man, you know.
Once back, Joe led his team to 6 wins in 9 starts and into the playoffs for the 5th time in 6 years. And this time, his off-the-field recovery was as impressive as his on-field heroics.
Joe showed me something, you know, after the back injury. You know, he showed me that, hey, he has the will to win. And he could have easily retired and took his insurance payment, but no, he loved the game. And he came back and shocked the world, you know, shocked the doctors, you know, the medical doctors, you know, and he just showed everyone that, you know, he's not in it for the money. He's in it, you know, because he loves the game.
The 49ers of the late 1980s were among the most talented teams ever to play football. In addition to Roger Craig, the team had the likes of Jerry Rice and John Taylor, helping to make up one of the most formidable offenses in the game, all under the guidance of the team catalyst, Joe Montana.
We felt that when he steps in the huddle and he's going to direct us down the field, we're going to win. We had a chance that we could win. Joe's like the Magic Johnson on the football field.
I think at times people would look and we would like pull off the impossible. Like how did those guys do that?
He was the director. He was the conductor.
He knows where everybody is at all times.
Never think that you weren't going to get the ball, because with Joe, he could always come back to the 3rd and the 4th receiver.
He just seemed to be inside all his receivers' heads. He knew what I was thinking while I was thinking it.
Joe reminds me of a guy that's like you sent to a war, like a Green Beret. You know, he's not afraid of anything. All the odds are against him, and he finds some kind of way to make it happen, you know, to win. The drive.
I had felt that we had lost the game.
Joe ran onto the field. He ran in, he squatted down, took a knee, started calling the play. You could hear a pin drop on the grass.
Joe comes into the huddle and he says, "Hey guys, we've been here before. Let's do what we got to do and go home." That was all that was said.
We had to make it happen. We had to score a touchdown.
Super Bowl 23 in Miami, the 49ers trailed with just over 3 minutes remaining, and Joe Montana must drive his team 92 yards for the winning score.
Two receivers near side. Joe back to throw. Steps up, throws. Out here for Rice. He has it at midfield.
Joe is so cool through the whole ordeal, man.
There's the 45. Montana back to throw. Throws over the middle. A fight gets for Rice. Rice into the 20.
Joe was able to make the right decision.
I had my block, but I slipped off of my block, and he wound up making the tackle. So then in my mind, I'm thinking, I got to do something, you know, because if I could have held that block, you never know, he might have scored. And it just so happened we got down to the last 34 seconds, and Joe looked my way.
Comes Rice. Back to throw Montana. Steps up, throws. Touchdown, 49ers! Taylor Evans for the touchdown!
It made me feel good to come back, and then even to win the game the way that we won it. Probably was, as a quarterback, is probably the most gratifying way, and even for John Taylor as a wide receiver too, to win a Super Bowl. I mean, you can't think of any way. I mean, those are the kind of things you play in the backyard as you're growing up, and winning a Super Bowl in the last second on a touchdown pass.
'89 marked the best season of Joe Montana's 11-year NFL career. Aside from winning his first regular season MVP award, Montana threw 11 postseason touchdown passes, including 5 in Super Bowl 24 against the Denver Broncos. As the 49ers routed Denver 55-10, Montana completed 22 of 29 passes and became the first player in NFL history to be named Super Bowl MVP 3 times. Under Montana, the 49ers entered postseason play 8 out of 9 seasons. By winning their 4th Super Bowl, San Francisco proved it was worthy of the title Team of the 80s.
Kansas City has a new chief.
You say it is so.
Hey, you're right. Montana has officially been a Kansas City chief for less than 24 hours now.
Oh, boy, that's big news right there.
And this will be on newsstands tomorrow. Sports Illustrated, Kansas City, here I come.
San Francisco still will have the Golden Gate Bridge, cable cars, Fisherman's Wharf, North Beach, and the best marriage of city, sea, and sky in America. But it will no longer have Joe Montana.
On April 22nd of 1993, the San Francisco 49ers traded Joe Montana to the Kansas City Chiefs. To many, it marked the end of an era in NFL history. But while one city loses a legend, another one gains, and football holds on to one of its greatest. You see, Joe Montana has proven time and again that he can make the game his own wherever he plays. Already, there's a sense of optimism in Kansas City that will undoubtedly raise the level of his teammates' efforts. Already in Kansas City, Joe Montana is the show. It began years ago in western Pennsylvania with a love of the game and a desire to succeed. The magic of Joe Montana has been seen on football fields east and west. And one thing's for sure, the next chapter in the Joe Montana story is yet to be written.
I remember the very first thing he said to me, I made a diving catch, one of his balls, and he said, hey, that was a great job. And I couldn't let it go. It was just the neatest thing. I went home and called my parents and told them that Joe had talked to me and said it's a great job. And I called all my friends, and it was really exciting just being able to play with someone with his stature.
I would love to see him just slam his fist, you know, down to the ground whenever we scored. That was like, okay, we did it. You know, that was the big play. And you look at him now, it's still the same old thing. If he makes a big play or something like that, he's gonna slam his fist down. And that was so exciting to me.
I think he has that innermost confidence that it isn't over till it's over. And that's what he's taught me, not only in football, but through life.
I knew that he could bring a team back. I knew that he could make heroic plays toward the end of games to win them. He had great resourcefulness, so we knew that. Aside from that, Joe is an outstanding athlete, a brilliant athlete, one of the best I've ever seen.
He's a great quarterback, man. He's the best.